The kingdom of Zuwara was beautiful but feared. Tall trees danced in the wind. Rivers flowed like music, and the sun always kissed the land. But behind the beauty, there was pain, pain hidden in traditions. One of the cruelest laws in Zuwara was this: when the queen dies, 7 maidens must be buried with her to serve her in the afterlife. The people whispered about it, but no one dared speak out loud. It has been this way for hundreds of years. The king was powerful, the elders were strict, and the law was never broken. Then one day, the queen fell sick. She had always been strong and kind, but a sudden illness took her strength. For 3 nights, drum beat slowly across the kingdom. The sound meant only one thing: the queen was dying. The king sat beside her bed. His heart was heavy. He loved her deeply, but he was also a man of law. As her breath grew weak, he closed his eyes and said, "May your soul find peace." The queen died. The land fell silent. Every door was closed. Every family lit candles. The king wore black and the kingdom mourned. But in the poor villages, fear began to rise. Soon the royal guards arrived. Their boots stamped hard on the earth. They held a screw in one hand and sword in the other. A crowd gathered. One guard raised his voice. "By royal order, 7 maidens has been chosen to follow the queen into the afterlife." He read the names one by one. Families screamed, mothers fell to the ground, fathers begged, and the last name was Ola. A silence fell on the land. Ola stood frozen. She was only 17. Her skin glowed like honey and her eyes were full of life. She was her parents' only child. Her mother dropped to the knees, shaking. "No, not my daughter, please. She is all I have," she cried. Ola's father grabbed the guard's leg. "Take me instead. She's just a child." But the guard kicked him away. The law is clear. Looked around. No one spoke for her. Even her neighbors looked away. Fear had made them silent. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her voice was strong. "I will not die for a dead queen. I refuse." The guards grabbed her by the arm. Her mom screamed louder, but they pushed her aside. Ola fought and kicked and beat, but they beat her until she was silent. They dragged her away. And the sun that had always shone over Zuwara suddenly hid behind the clouds. They locked Ola in the cold, dark room in the palace. The floor was hard and the air smelled like dust and death. She sat in a corner, hugging her knees, tears wetting her dress. Outside the small window, she can hear music and singing, preparations for the queen's burial. But inside her heart, only fear and anger lived. A maid brought her food, but Ola pushed it away. "Why feed me? So that I can be strong enough to die?" she asked. The maid looked down. "I'm sorry," she whispered, then left in silence. Later that night, Ola heard the door opened again. 2 guards pulled her out. She struggled and screamed, "Let me go, I don't want to die." They took her to a large hall where the queen's body rested, dressed in gold, lying still on the bed of flowers. The 7 maidens were lined up, dressed in white like brides, but their faces were full of fear. Amara looked around, her heart raced. "No, I will not stand here and wait for death. I did nothing wrong." One of the elders stepped forward. His voice was deep and cold. "Child, do not disgrace this honor. It is a holy tradition. You will serve the queen in the spirit world." Ola spat on the floor. "This is not honor. This is murder." Gasps filled the room. The elders raised his staff. But before he could strike, Ola turned to the queen's coffee. She fell on her knees, eyes full of fire, and shouted, "May this land never know peace. May the rivers dry. May every child cry until my voice is heard. May sorrow fall upon this land. One of the guards slapped her hard. Blood ran down her lip, but she kept speaking. I am Ola, daughter of the poor, born to live, not to die. I curse this land with my last breath. The other maidens cried quietly, holding each other. Even the guards looked nervous now. The elders signaled, and Ola was dragged away again. But this time, something in the air changed. The wind howled louder. The torches flickered. The ground felt cold. Outside in her village, Ola's parents waited. Her mother sat on the ground, rocking back and forth, whispering her name. Father stared at the road, hoping she would run back home, but she never came. The sky turned gray the morning of the burial. Clouds gathered like silent mourners. The air was heavy and no birds sang. It was as if the heavens themselves knew what was about to happen. Drum beat slowly across Zuwara. Each sound felt like a heartbeat counting down to earth. 7 white coffins were placed around the queen's golden one. Flowers were scattered, but they could not hide the sorrow. Crowds gathered quietly, their faces full of fear and guilt. Ola was brought at last. Her hands were tied, her face bruised, but her eyes still burnt with fire. The villagers gasped when they saw her. She was not crying anymore. She was calm, too calm, that kind of calm that comes just before a storm. A native chief priest raised his voice. Today, our beloved queens return to the gods, not alone but with 7 chosen maidens who will serve her forever. The crowd stayed silent. The maidens were led to their coffins. Some cried. Others trembled, but Ola stood firm. She did not move. When the guards tried to force her to the coffins, she pulled away and shouted, "You killed us for honor, but you will reap shame. You bury us in silence, but the earth will cry. You take my life, then take it. But know this, my blood will curse this land." Her voice echoed through the hills. The guards shoved her into the coffin. She cried, kicked and scratched, but they slammed it shut. As the first shovel of death hit the wood, thunder rolled across the sky. The ground shook lightly. Trees nearby began to sway violently, though there was no wind. Back in the village, Ola's mothers collapsed. Her father shouted her name and ran into the woods like a madman. By evening, both were found dead. Some said their hearts broke from pain. Others said the curse had already begun. That night, rain fell, but it wasn't the soft rain that fills the soul. It was heavy and angry, flooding homes, tearing down homes and washing away the crops. The people had buried the queen with 7 daughters of the land, but the land itself had begun to fight back. Well, a deep silence covered Zuwara. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that made people look over their shoulders, afraid of the wind, afraid of shadows. For the first time in few days, the king held a feast in honor of his queen. Drum was played, animals were slaughtered, elders gave speech, but the people only ate with trembling hands. Then the strange things happened. First, the river stopped flowing. The great river Boma, which had never dried even in the hottest summer, turned to mud. Fishermen returned with empty baskets. The king sent priests to pray by the banks, but the water did not return. Next, the children fell ill. One by one, young boys and girls began to cough blood. Healers tried herbs and prayers, but nothing worked. Mothers cried in the night. Fathers dug small graves with shaking hands. Then came the animal. Goats gave birth to dead kids. Cows stopped producing milk. Birds flew away and never returned. Even the royal horses refused to eat. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. The people began to whisper Ola's name. She caused us the mercy. She begged for mercy, and will give her death. Soon the king summoned the elders. We buried 7 maidens as the law demands, he said. Why does the land punish us? The oldest elder stood, his back bent with age, his voice cracked. Because one of them cursed us with her dying breath. She died angry. She died innocent, and her spirit now walks with fire in her heart. The room grew cold. What must be done? The king asked. The elder looked down, then lowered his voice. Her soul is trapped. It cannot rest until we right the wrong, Zuwara will sob. But the king slammed his fist. We followed the law. Are we now to fear the voice of a poor girl? The older replied gently. A poor girl curse can burn even a king's palace. Outside the palace, the people gathered in fear. They whisper under the breath, Ola walks the land, and she is not done yet. At night, the wind changed in Zuwara. It no longer carried the scent of flowers or roasted yams. It carried something colder, the scent of sorrow. People began hearing strange cries in the dark spot. At first, like a child weeping, then louder, angrier. The voice would come from the forest, from the rivers, even from inside their huts. She's here, some said. Ola has returned. Others whispered. Old women in the village began tying red clothes around their doors. Mothers held their babies close, praying not to hear footsteps at night. One evening, a little boy ran into the village screaming. He had gone to the forest to fetch firewood, but came back shaking barefoot, his eyes wide with fear. I saw her, he cried, a girl in white floating, her eyes war red. She called my name. The villagers gathered around terrified. The boy pointed to the tree. She said, tell them I'm not finished. That night, no one slept. Even in the palace, the king tossed and turned. He dreamed of a girl in white standing at the foot of his bed. Her face pale, her voice calm but sharp like a knife. You let them kill me, she said. Now your land will know what it means to bury the living. He woke up gasping, sweat pouring from his head. He called his guards, but they saw no one. Still, every night after that, the king heard footsteps in the halls. Doors opened on their own. The queen's mirror shattered without reason. The scent of flowers from her coffin now smelled like blood. In the village, Ola's parents' grave cracked open. No one dared go near them. People started leaving their homes, running to other towns. Zuwara was no longer safe. The elders begged the king, we must do something. Her soul walks among us. But the king was proud. Let her hunt. I will not bow to the cause of a child. Outside, thunder roared, trees bent low, the sky darkened, and far away deep in the forest where the queen and the 7 maidens were buried, the ground began to tremble. Something was waking. By the 7th week, Zuwara had burned to dust and fear. No rain, no food, only the whispers of a girl who should have lived. The villagers could no longer bear it. They gathered in the palace courtyard. Men, women, even the sick and old. Some held burning torches, others heard their crying children. All had one voice, let Ola rest. The king stood on his balcony looking down at them. His face was thin now, his crown dull, his robe loose on his shoulders. One brave woman stepped forward. She was the mother of one of the 7 maidens. Her voice broke as she spoke. My daughter died with fear in her heart. Ola begged to live. We let them die. This is a cause. It is justice. More villagers stepped forward. A hunter, an old woman, a schoolboy, One by one, they spoke of the girl who was buried alive, who cried for help, who laid curse with her dying breath. Finally, the oldest elder limped to the front. "There is only one way to end this," he said. "We must dig up the grave, bring out her bones, wash them clean, apologize, give her a resting place of honor, and beg her spirit to forgive us." The king clenched his jaws. "You want me to open royal graves?" "No," the elder said. "We want you to right a terrible wrong." That night, the king sat alone in his chamber, staring at the dying candle. In the silence, he heard her voice again. "You took my life, now feel my pain." The flame went out. The next morning, the king announced, "We go to the forest and we dig." The other morning, they walked to the burial ground. Even the trees were quiet, no wind, no birds, only silence. They found Ola's coffin, broken, tilted, covered in veins. When they opened it, her bones were there, but her white dress had not rotten. It looked new, as if she had just laid down to sleep. They bathed her bones in clean water and placed them in a new coffin made of polished wood. They dressed it with white cloth and gold beads. The villagers sang song of sorrow. The king knelt and touched the coffin. "I was wrong," he said aloud. "We all were. Forgive us, Ola. May your soul find peace." The ground shook. A soft wind blew through the trees. Birds chirped again for the first time in a week. A gentle rain began to fall. Light and healing. And far away deep in the forest, someone saw and sworn they saw a girl in white walking into the light, smiling. Peace returned to Zuwara. The river flowed again. The crops grew green and strong. Children played in the sand, laughter returning to the village like a long-lost friend. But something had changed. The people had seen the cast of blind tradition. They had buried a girl who wanted to live. They had watched their land bleed because of it. And now, they wanted to make sure it never happened again. One morning, the king stood before the people. No thrones, no crown, just a man older, humbled and broken by guilt. "I have ruled by law," he said, "but not by love. Today, that ends." He looked up at the sky as if speaking to Ola herself. "From this day forward, no maiden shall be burnt with the dead. No life shall be taken in the name of custom. The old law is dead." The crowd stood in silence. Then someone began to clap, and another, and then the whole village raised their hands in thanks, not to the king, but to Ola. A shrine was built at the edge of the forest, where her new grave now lay. People came with flowers, food, songs, and tears. Mothers brought their daughters to kneel and say thank you. They called her the Shrine of the Silent Maidens. Over time, Ola's story became a lesson taught in every home. Not a tale of ghosts, but of courage of a girl who said no when everyone expected her to say yes. Of a spirit that stood up even in death, and whenever someone in Zuwara faced injustice, they whispered, "Let Ola guide you."
If you find this story interesting, please like, comment, and share.